Hello and welcome to the Comparesoft Maintenance Podcast. In this episode, we are looking at maintenance in food and beverage manufacturing, a sector where unplanned downtime can cost up to £5,800 an hour, and where most plants are still running OEE scores well below industry standard. Today I'm joined by Josh Clarke, Senior Maintenance and Engineering Manager at Arla Foods Aylesbury site, one of the world's biggest dairy factories, producing 1.5 million bottles of milk a day across 3 production sites. Josh has spent his career building maintenance programs across dairy, bakery and meat processing, including a 90% reduction in downtime at Délifrance. We'll explore how Josh runs 500 to 700 work orders a week at a 24/7 site, why food and beverage plants fall back on spreadsheets even when they have a CMMS, and what it really takes to build a preventive maintenance culture from the ground up. Hi Josh, thanks for being on the podcast. How are you?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ryan. Glad to be here. Looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, as am I. So you are Senior Maintenance and Engineering Manager at Arla Foods Aylesbury site, which is one of the world's biggest dairy factories. Walk us through your day-to-day. What goes into maintaining a food and beverage manufacturing site of that scale?
Yeah, no, it's obviously quite a challenge. It's a large operation. So my day-to-day is probably like most other sites. The most important part of my day is to deliver goods to our customers. Milk being a short shelf life, it's critical that we get it into site and out of site with as quickly as possible, because our customers the best shelf life. So all my day starts around that. So I'm attending meetings from the first moment I walk in. We're reviewing what's happened in the last 24 hours. We're looking at what we need to do to have a good day today and make sure that we're going to get up to that 1.5 million bottles per day at our site. So when we look at the issues, we then obviously put in any follow-up, any actions that we need to take and follow up on them, but then also make sure that we're ahead of today's plan. Then straight after that, we go into what we call the golden hour here at our site, and it's down on the shop floor. We're down there, we're looking, we're investigating, we're touching things. I think it's the most important part of my day. Something will tweak my interest in the morning, and I'll be like, I want to dig a little bit more into this. I want to see what's going on, or whether there's a new project at site or something that's going on. I want to go down there. I want to see the team. Also, I get to feel the shop floor and be with my own team as well as some of the operational teams, which I think is really key. I think being around people seeing you is a massive part of building a good cohesive team.
Yeah, and taking that hands-on approach, I guess, is you're a bit more part of the operations. You understand what's going on the shop floor.
Exactly. I think for me, particularly if you've got a breakdown on that day or something like that, you're people seeing you there with them, knowing that they're supported and that you're there to make sure that everything's going to work right for them, then I think that goes a long way as well. It's something that we sometimes forget. We can get stuck in the I'm clearing emails, I'm in meetings, I'm too busy. I think sometimes the work's done on the shop floor. I'm there to support them, not the other way around. So servant leadership, whatever you want to call it. I think that's it for me. So then obviously the rest of my day is taken up. I'm in and out of meetings, sort of and providing direction around everything from legal and mandatory compliance to our sustainability, insurance. It depends on whatever it is, what's the topic of the day or what we need to do. I run 3 departments at my site. So I've got a processing department, a production department, and I have an energy center as well, which I'm solely responsible for, and it generates all of our electricity and all of our services for site. So that's also another massive part of my role. So making sure all of that's sort of all ticking along, and then I'm getting all the right sort of KPIs, and we're moving in the right direction, and the teams are supported, then that's it for me. And then obviously I try and fit in some time in my day where I'm sort of planning and looking forward, like what's the next steps. I work on a couple of different subjects like IT/OT, which is a big part of Aylesbury. It's so automated now, we're so linked in with the production network within Arla that we need to make sure that we're doing this. But then also, where are we going with maintenance? What's the next steps? Like it's a dynamic world, and we need to keep moving. Otherwise, we're going to fall behind, and we're not going to have the right level of resilience moving forward. I guess is what we're trying to do. We're trying to build resilience. We want to be able to be consistent, and what does that look like? And I think that's a big part of my day. It's in a nutshell, but obviously my day can be thrown off. We can have our customers turn up. We can be audited. It's a highly regulated industry, so anything can happen. So HSE, all of them, they'll turn up every now and again. So it's I'd love a planned day, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way, and you just got to sort of adapt and change with it, right? So yeah, that's a average day for me.
Excellent. Sounds like you're very busy every day, Josh. How many work orders is your team typically managing in a given week, like across those 3 areas?
Oh, I mean, I think probably anywhere up to probably 500 to 700. I think probably in that range. So it's a large amount. Obviously, we have our reactives, but we're really trying to drive the preventative and planned aspects of our roles now, as well as trying to build in some of the asset optimization sort of tasks. We're maybe over planning at the moment, because for me, we need to be just doing always that little bit more planned work, or that little bit more preventative, so our reactive does go down. The reactivity and your day-to-day sort of work is almost a takeaway from what you should be doing, which is concentrating on the reliability, improving the systems, improving the site, and actually becoming more so you're able to be more production resilient and deliver for your customers. So that for me is what we're trying to do at the moment. It's been a bit of a, it's always been a bit of a change. It's different ways of working when I came in from the previous manager. So it's always, then I've got a different sort of style, and I've got a different way and different focuses for me. So we're always trying to progress and move forward.
And you touched on there, like prioritizing asset maintenance. Is there a scenario where, okay, this particular machine, this particular bit of equipment is fine in its reactive maintenance stage, it doesn't need to put into a planned maintenance stage? And is there a scenario where it's fine to almost run an asset to the point of failure?
I personally don't think it's okay to run something to the point of failure. So my philosophy is that we do have a criticality at site. There's assets that are more important than others, depending on what product lines they might be running. So for me, there's A's, B's, and C's. So our C category is not a run to fail category. It's our lowest category. But for me, it's always, they have a very base level of maintenance. So they might have inspections, and checks, rather than overhauls or parts changes and things like that. As well, our A assets, we might have predictive maintenance, we might have condition-based monitoring, we might have a lot of different other things that we're putting in there, but then, and this is some of the conversations I'm having at the moment, is actually as the market changes and an industry changes, that we might review that every now and again and be like, C's have become a B, or they might become an A, depending on what's starting to move, where profit's coming from as a business. So I think on any given day, any given week, it can change.
Yeah, sure. And something you touched on just previously, 500 to 700 work orders a week. How does that work? Like, from something being raised, like how does it get prioritized, assigned, closed out?
Work orders prioritized based on, I guess, needs at the time. And it depends on the criticality of the asset or the production that's running in that day, because we do have days where we have lower production and days that we have higher production, because of just how volatile some of the markets can be. So for me, the prioritization is done by our engineering planning team. So my engineering planning team, they're a fantastic team. They're a relatively new team to us at Aylesbury. But what they've been doing is that we've actually pulled from our operational departments to fill this role. And they understand it from their point of view. So they are able to balance that sort of operational requirement and what we've got. And he's fantastic at finding what I would call opportunistic maintenance all around so we need to get this job done, and then we've got this line, and like I watch him work. I'm a silent partner in the engineering planning, but obviously it's fantastic. And if there is something that's critical, we work with our operational teams to make sure we can get it done and move it around. I think for me, particularly our supply chain planning department, our operational production departments, like those are key relationships for us, and that's how we balance it. Because we engineering has priorities, and so does our colleagues as well. So it's finding that happy balance between everybody. So we're working to achieve the same goals.
You touched on something there. We want the most amount of shutdown time possible, but obviously being in dairy and your site runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's no shutdown window to almost lean on. How do you maintain your maintenance strategy to keep up with that all year round production schedule?
So there's different multiple ways to do this. So depending on which department you're actually talking to, we have different approaches, and I would say we use all the approaches at Aylesbury. So we're like in our energy centre, we run an N+1, so we're able to shut down, overhaul, and put back on. Because utilities, it's all about 100% uptime and just and having that resilience within that environment. We have time-based shutdown within our processing department, where we shut down particular pasteurizing lines or production lines, if you wish to call them that, where we can take them out for a day, a week, depending on what it is, so long as that we're also very aware at the criticality, like what's our rollback time, everything like that. It's all risk assessed in how we approach. Then my production department has what they call the maintenance rhythm. So they have set lines down, because we're actually able to section up some of their equipment. So we're able to go on a Tuesday, we'll have a rotating amount of line, a rotating line that we always have, which is great. But then obviously, as I've already sort of touched on, we have our planning department, or part of the department, which focuses more on the opportunistic maintenance. So we might have a quiet night. The sun's out, not many people are drinking milk right now, so let's it's a little bit quieter at site, and we might go, okay, well, we're going to have some planned downtime on this line for demand reasons, and we'll jump on that and able to utilize that capacity to meet our own ends. And
so it could be quite reactive then, like if you have a shutdown.
Yeah, I think sometimes as an engineering department, and I've worked all around the world, I think you just got to adapt to what your industry is. We can't turn the cows on and off, unfortunately, but it's as much as we want to sometimes. But it's for me, it's more around we adapt to our industries. I've worked in places where we had 3 months shutdown, where we'd have the plant for 3 months. We would then just strip it completely to pieces, because when it started up, it needed to run. I've worked in other places where you've got 10 days per year that you're allowed to have, so use them wisely. And it's and we might split them a week here, and that sort of thing. So that works really well. And it's like, and then you just adapt to what your business is able to achieve. Some businesses have really long shelf lives. Others, like ours, is like it's a couple of weeks. So and we want to make sure that we're delivering it to that when we start up, and we know it's delivering it to customers. But effectively, what it means is that we can go from these big periods of time, and then we might get down to being like, we've got a half-hour work order, but that's what we need in order to keep the plant in a good state. Yeah. So we take that 10 hours work and we chunk it up into 5 2-hour chunks, or it might even be 20 half-hour chunks. It's like that for me is just our different approach, and we just need to do it based on our demand and achieving our business goals.
Yeah. You said earlier, the overall achievement is eliminating that downtime, keeping uptime of a critical machinery. I saw a stat the other day, I think 74% of food and beverage manufacturing downtime is preventable. And most manufacturers have OEE scores, I think, of between 40 to 60%, which is quite below the industry standard. What do you think food and beverage manufacturing sector gets wrong in maintenance?
I've seen a couple of things go wrong where it becomes all about the production, and we need to get it out. Sometimes we need to do the maintenance to actually have a more beneficial effect on our production. It's sort of you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So we get more production time, but actually we spend more time fixing things during that production time. And if we actually plan some time in, that's one. I've also seen the businesses focus on doing the I don't know, that the glory projects or the glory approach. We're going to put in vibration monitoring, condition-based monitoring, and we're never going to have a breakdown again.
Yeah.
And it's just as much in my industry as it is in anybody else's. But actually, for me, and my sort of sole focus and my approach to being an engineering manager is just get the basics right. It's like have the maintenance, do the maintenance, and trust the maintenance. And that's sort of like how I sort of see it. So for me, it's like we need to have the actual physical tasks and jobs to do. We need to do them and do them well, and then we need to trust that what we have in that program is actually going to deliver. So, and for me, that starts with just having the right the right sort of program, the right team, and then trusting that the outcome is. When I first moved to some of my sites I've worked on previously, we've been in that 40 to 60% situation, and we've got downtime numbers of 50 to 60%. So we're spending half of over half of our time down for breakdowns and things like that. And it's like, and my approach has been, we just need to do one maintenance work order per day. Just one thing that's preventative, which is going to stop a breakdown going forward. And then eventually that one becomes two, becomes three. And then we start to fight that fight. And it's like, we just got to trust that our investment and our focus on delivering this one is going to lead to two, which is then going to have this snowball effect, or as one of my old bosses say, a virtuous cycle where we start to head up and we will eventually become a better site for it. So and I think I walked out of that site on my last day where we had less than 2% downtime and our OEE was well into the 90s. So for me, that is the proof in the pudding. I didn't do anything groundbreaking. What I wanted to do was just do something that was just like, let's start with one thing, one simple thing. Let's not shy away from work. Let's do hard work. And that's it. Work a little bit harder every day, and eventually the work becomes easier over time because it's more consistent, it's more concise, and you eventually get the right result.
Did you find that challenging, or like to build that sort of maintenance culture in there, that preventive maintenance culture? Because it can be quite a shift, can't it?
It can be a shift. I think the shift was harder for the team that was there when I arrived. So when I arrived at this particular role, it was about changing their ways and their methods and their process. So I've always done it like this. And it's not, their maintenance schedule was they had a pile of paper on a desk, and then they would pick and choose what they wanted to do. Oh, this is, look how many we got done last night. Okay, that's great. It's not hard though, is it? Like those ones. So like my first thing I did was throw it in the bin. Like there was literally a bin right next door. I swept it off the desk and I was like, I'm going to tell you what you're going to be doing now. So this is what we're going to do. I ruffled a few feathers. Probably some people didn't make the journey. They, didn't like the approach, didn't like what I was doing. So that's fine. That's just the vicissitudes of life. You move on, you grow. But actually now, like the guys that came on that journey with me, they're all thriving. They're team leaders, they're managers, they're leading their own departments now, and they're doing the things that and I went out for drinks with them last Friday. So it was it's good to see that it's that let's do the basics, let's just do stuff. We're gonna do one a day, and let's just move forward. I think just being resilient, knowing what you want, having this is where I am and it's hard. This is where I want to go, and it's it's going to take a while. It's having the patience. It's keeping your true north, so to speak, in some ways. But knowing where you're going, what steps it is to get there. And I think for me, most businesses get it wrong. I think they want silver bullets to solve these problems. And I think it's just that slow, methodical improvement. And it might sound cliche, but it's the continuous improvement methodology. It's like, I'm just going to get a little bit better every day, and it's a slow plod. Apologies. for me. So I think that's how my approach is, and rightly or wrongly, other people might have far better ideas than me, but it's just how I approach it. It's very simplistic. It's just do the basics, do them right, and get to where you need to get to.
And you've got that proof that it works.
I've definitely proved to myself and proved to the people I've worked with that it works over time. I think if I look at that, the role there where we were 50-60% downtime, when we get to 92, that was probably at least 3 years of hard work and effort and grind on my part. And there was me and I had 25 reports. And then eventually over time we built and we structured the team, and it became easier. It became easier on all of us. And eventually we got to where we needed to get to, and it was really successful.
And you mentioned there it's important having the basics, it's important having a program and a system in place. I think nearly half of all food and beverage manufacturing plants still use part of their day-to-day maintenance on spreadsheets. Is that a similar setup to you guys at Arla Aylesbury site? And how are you tracking your work orders and analysing your data?
Yeah, so I mean, we're lucky to have a sort of global system. We've got obviously SAP PM, which is sort of a global standard for CMMS systems now, and then we've also got our Power BI, and we do a lot of citizen development in our in-house to make sure that we're getting what we need out of these platforms. There's always room for improvement, and we want it to grow. I think why people revert sometimes back to the Excel spreadsheets and things like that is because they're buying a tool as their silver bullet to fix their problems, when to me it's like let's concentrate on the process. Like when one of the big things I wanted to do, I usually do whenever I move to any site, is make sure that we've got a planning and scheduling function, because that to me is like, if the guys don't know what they're doing, guys and girls in your engineering team don't know what they're doing, then for me that's half, you haven't won that battle. Like, they need to know. When I was an engineer and I was on the tools, I wanted to know, like, this is what you're doing today, this is all the work we've got to get through, and that for me is what drives that good virtuous cycle, so to speak. So for me it's people revert to those old ways on the Excel because that fits their process.
Yeah.
And the tools that we tend to implement from software companies and things like that, I'm not saying they're not good, but they don't fit the process that you're trying to achieve. So, I think that for me, and if you're going to introduce anything, it needs to be in order to make your process faster, quicker, and more efficient. And I think sometimes we forget the purpose we're serving sometimes, and things look fancy, or they've got a nice UI, or whatever it is that they're trying to develop. And I think that for me is where we fall down sometimes. And I've made plenty of mistakes in my career. I've completely deleted things, and this doesn't work now, and it's okay. But it's what is that sort of it comes back to continuous improvement, those slow step, and it's like, but effectively sometimes you need to go back to your original process, what worked about it, and then only introduce tools if they're going to make that process more efficient. Because if for me it's engineers need tools in their hands, and that's the purpose that I'm here to serve. I'm more tool time, more fixings, more preventative, and then eventually it's the cycle. And again, it's probably a very simplistic way of looking at it, but that's how I want to sort of portray this process.
Is there one requirement or capability of your current CMMS or BI that you just cannot do without? Is it that planning and scheduling you mentioned? Is it something else?
Yeah, planning and scheduling for me is what it boils down to. We've got a big pool of work. We've got a production plan. Now make them fit, and particularly with a 24/7, 365 site, that's what we need. Like, we need to make use of all the opportunities we have. We've got our rhythm, and our operational teams are great at helping us to deliver those. But for me, it's like, the little bit extra that we're doing, the half-hour downtime here, the quick fix here, that sort of thing. That's also what's helping us drive some of this performance as well.
And at the Arla Aylesbury site, you mentioned to me you've got a mixture in your asset portfolio of standard and customized equipment. How does having custom made equipment change the way you plan maintenance? Because obviously you've got to rely on custom spare parts as well.
Yeah, so I think it's obviously we do have a stock standard stuff you buy off a
Mm.
shelf from a reputable manufacturers, and that's really clean cut and easy to get. Particularly in the dairy industry, there is some things that are unique to the UK, and they don't have them anywhere else in the world. So, and it, particularly around our packaging. So, for me, my approaches have it's maintain our relationships with external partners.
Mm.
Now, some of my custom built machinery, the manufacturers don't exist anymore or have changed. So actually now my approach is build in-house experts, but then also bring in the best from the outside. So
Right. Okay.
we good external partners, good approaches, and we are iterating on these things because they're not easy to buy, and there's always we can always build a good version too, and things like that. So what does that look like? The other one that I'm a sort of my approach with it is reliability projects, what I call reliability projects. So it's using my own team who are experts, and because
Hmm.
sometimes we're the experts on the custom built machines, like we
Yep.
use them, we develop them, we maintain them. So it's get those guys that are in my team, guys and girls. Apologies, I've got get them, put them in place, and go. Look, you've got open reign, like free reign. Go and figure this out for me, and give them the time, give them the space, give them the resources around which to build these things. Let's make it better. Let's learn. And for me, I think so long as you're trying to do something to solve your problems, I think you can never do any wrong. With things break down, but it's like
Mm.
let's learn. And if it's a reoccurring issue, then what's it going to cost us to time, money, whichever, to solve this problem, because
Mm.
effectively it all comes down to throughput, doesn't it? So if we're not fixing it all the time, for me
Yeah.
that's my sort of approach anyway.
Yeah. One success story of yours, Josh, that really stood out to me was your time as engineering manager at Délifrance. I think we touched on this already. So you reduced downtime in 90% and the energy and water consumption. How did you manage that? Like, where did you start first? And was reducing downtime a KPI for you and your team when you first went into that role?
Of course, I think that's the KPI of overarching KPI
Yeah, of
for all
course. Yeah.
engineering teams. Yeah, so I think when I first went into the role, we were the worst performing, probably one of the worst performing sites in the group. We'd just commissioned a brand new line, and I was brought in just around a year or less than a year after it had been
Mm.
commissioned. They were already starting to struggle with it a little bit. So for me, it was more like stabilize. I was getting calls in the middle of the night, like things going wrong,
Oh,
customers
wow.
getting shorted. Like it's just like
Yeah.
I'm sure if there's any engineering managers listening, that they've all been in the fire, like I have. And I think for me, it's that was my sole focus to begin with. It's stabilize, stabilize, stabilize. I think until and it took a while. Like I'm not going to lie, it took a while. It was tough. It was hard. I was learning. I was
Mm.
a baby engineering manager back then, and I think for me that was sort of my sole focus. Now the sustainability play and the sort of improvements came in more from just doing good maintenance and learning and bringing in experts and talking to the right people and that sort of thing. I think when I didn't go into engineering thinking there was a sustainability approach to
Mm.
it. The sustainability approach came from doing good maintenance, I think. And it's like, oh, well, if we change this or we did that, would actually reduce our power consumption, and that power could, that reduction is going to make it more efficient and increase its service life. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's that, particularly around the refrigeration side and things like that. And it
Mm.
was just like, refrigeration is like 90% of our costs, particularly in the food industry. Like it's in terms of energy cost. So for me, it's like, and then I've got some really good teams I've worked with over the years, I keep in contact. I take them with me to places now, and they've followed me throughout my career. And for me, it's more the being able to rely on these experts, bring them in. What do I do? What's the plan? I don't know it all. And I am, I'm not an expert on everything, as I'm. But for me, it's more have them in your back pocket, trust them, and let's deliver it. And it was only just doing good maintenance, wanting the best for the plant, wanting to do better. That actually we had some big payoffs, and those payoffs paid for the capital I was expending on them. And I've had accountants come rushing up to me before going, I think we're being undercharged for electricity. What's going on? And it's like, oh, let's look at it and deep dive it. And I'm like, oh, well, this is when we did this project and we see it drop down. And this is when we did this project and we see it drop down. And you can start to correlate it. And then that correlation becomes cash. And then the business is performing, it's becoming more profitable. Your directors are happy. It's like everyone's happy. The plants, your customers aren't knocking on the door because you've given them everything they asked for. And it's I don't know. I think when you're sort of focused on the right things, or you're focused in your area of speciality, sometimes you forget about the outside world. And like actually, you're a part of an organization. You're a cog within a big machine, and actually it starts to have these virtuous effects on everybody else. So it does work. And I mean that's my approach. I was just trying to do the right thing, particularly at Délifrance, and trying to get the position and get the plant to perform where it was. And I think that's, I was really lucky. And I had a really good team around me, from my direct reports to my managers and peer group. And we did some really good things there.
You touched on something there, the refrigeration costs. It was 90% of essentially the maintenance budget. Obviously, at Arla Aylesbury site, you've got an energy centre there, a purpose built. Does that run all your refrigeration output at the site?
Yep, it does. So about 3.5 megawatts to 4 megawatts of refrigeration capacity, depending on your time of the year. So that is obviously how we, with Aylesbury, like energy is such a hot topic within the milk industry as well. It brings a lot of attention and things like that. But the way that Arla particularly is investing in their sustainability and their net zero sort of strategy, I think it's really driving some of that. That's what Aylesbury is built for. It's built to be super efficient and have those really like take the milk technology forward. So, and then now, we're constantly iterating on it. We're building heat pumps. We're looking at different ways of how we can make the most out of our resources and actually invest in it. So like, for instance, we do everything in my energy center. We obviously refrigerate all of our equipment. We generate all of our own electricity, but we use the waste heat from the electricity generation to then drive our pasteurization and our steam for our plant. We then use our milk waste as to generate biogas that drives our electricity. Wow. So it's an amazing setup, amazing design from the original designers. And we're constantly building on top of that. Like, what are we going to do next? How are we going to save more energy? And we've actually over time shrunk the consumption of Aylesbury down to the point where we're actually don't require all the generation at our site now. So we've now begun to start to derate some of our generators during sort of periods of the year where the consumption is not as high. So it's like and then we talk about the Délifrance situation, and it's like just doing the good maintenance and doing the good improvement, and eventually good things happen. And it's been an amazing journey for the site.
Excellent. I know we don't like to prioritize certain areas of maintenance, but would you say then if the energy sector at Aylesbury site, if there was issues there, if that would gone down, that would take priority because it would have a knock-on effect across the workshop?
Of course. So it's it all starts and ends at the energy centre. So
Yeah.
they bring in our water, they take our waste, they treat our wastewater, they generate our electricity, they
Yeah.
generate our steam and our fridge. So without them, we wouldn't do anything. So it's a big department. It's really important to me in the site. So it starts there, but then obviously it all starts with our farmers as well. We're farmer-owned cooperative, so it's about like we're trying to bring in it. So it's all just part of a giant chain. It's we can't do one without the other. So it's but obviously without the energy centre, it's sort of the beating heart of the facility, and then the rest of the facility is what drives our business. So can't have one without the other, but we wouldn't do it without the energy centre and the team over there.
Yeah. So, I mean, Josh, it's been a really insightful look into the food and beverage manufacturing maintenance. I'd like to close with a final question. If you had to pick three things that generally separate the food and beverage sites running well from the ones that aren't, what would they be?
Ooh, the first thing that pops to my mind is like a one vision, one team. I think sometimes we could be so segregated into our factions or our silos that we forget what we're all working for. So I think when I've been on good teams and bad teams, that's the thing that's sort of missing. Obviously, from a maintenance point of view, it's have the maintenance, do the maintenance, and trust it, and constantly iterate on that. I think that for me is probably second. And I think for third, like the priority of any business is to make money, and that's what we need to focus ourselves on, increasing throughput. And we all need to be working towards that goal. I think it probably leans itself to the first point, but I think that for me, I'm trying to. Yeah, I think that for me is what it is, and it's just that continuous improvement mindset. I think you could be in any department or any discipline across the site, and I think if you're not trying to get better or improve what you're doing, or if you're just trying to survive, I don't think that's probably the right mindset. Good businesses die because they fail to change, or they fail to try something different or learn. Yeah, that's it for me. I think, yeah, if that was one thing people want to take away.
Excellent. Josh, you've been a brilliant guest. You've given such a real practical view of what it takes to run maintenance well in food and beverage manufacturing. And that's going to be useful for any maintenance manager wrestling with, your unplanned downtime, high maintenance costs, production conflicts. So thank you so much for joining us today, Josh.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me on, Ryan.
And thank you for all the listeners, and we'll see you on the next episode.